anybody that has encountered my business, no matter their age, has benefited and given feedback of like, oh my God, like I needed this when I was younger. Like,
yo, yo, yo.
Hello, hello.
What's up, coworkers?
What up, coworkers? Welcome back to this week's episode of your favorite podcast, We Outside After Work. Today, we are joined by a special guest, Amber, and we're super excited to have her. She does a lot of things within the adulting world, and that is her brand. And she's going to talk a little bit about why she wanted to go that route and talk about how ghetto adulting is, because we all know, you know, the struggles that we deal with. Just to get started, we're going to do our icebreaker game. And the first question is going to be something that we just came up with on the spot. So I will let Amber go first to answer, then Aaron, and then I'll go. So the first question is, knowing everything you know now about life, about your financial situation, relationships, family, would you, if you had the opportunity to go back in time to, I want to say, 18 years old, would you take that opportunity? Why or why not?
hello, everybody. Thank you all for having me. I'm Amber. Like they said, I would not go back to 18. I would go back to like early 20s. I would not go back to 18 because I feel like that was a great time. Like I really enjoyed high school. I enjoyed my senior year, but to stay in high school, I feel like I wouldn't have grown as much as I have now. Like some things are similar to how I was in high school, but leaving high school, leaving my hometown is what significantly helped me like become who I am. So I would not go back and stay in high school, even though I had a great time, but
Yeah.
gotta go.
See, I was thinking like right after high school, like either go to college or go into the workforce. Like you just wouldn't go back to none of that.
I would stay in college in my senior year, probably. I would definitely stay in college. Yeah, I would stay in college. I would definitely pick college over staying in high school. And then if I like really, really had a choice, like I would stay 25. Like that was a good time. Everything was going great at 25.
Okay. Felt more stable.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What about you, Aaron?
I would definitely go back to 18. I didn't go to college right after high school. I did not want to go to college. I told myself that college was a scam, a ripoff, and all those things were true, but I wouldn't have gotten the experience that I had that was wonderful. Like, I don't take anything away from my college experience. The education, I don't really need it. So I would have went back to 18 and I would have started school on time. Like, I wish I could go back and live those 4, 5, 6 years all over again.
Yeah. They always say college was the best years of your life.
I agree.
Which for me, like, I never wanted that to be the case where like I had such a great time and then the rest was downhill. But I would go back to college just because I feel like the first time around I was more secluded. Like once I got my group of friends, these were my group of friends. Like it was like I was open to talking to more people, but it was like if you saw one person, you saw the other. Like we were like glued at the hip.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I would just expose myself more to other people. And I think I would probably transfer to a school out of state, like experience the HBCU life, just because now I feel like I've heard so many great things about them. But back then, and I don't really come from a family where a lot of people went to school, let alone went to like a HBCU. So I think for me, I would want to experience that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, another thing I would want to experience is if we were able to get our mugshots or see our mugshots, what would you think that you did to get a mugshot? That's the question, right, Dana?
Yes.
I was excited when you all said this one because I am a pretty good rule follower. So I'm like, what would I get arrested for? But what I would get arrested for is public intoxication because leaving brunch, I have been throwing up places outside. I have been struggling to make it back home. So I feel like if I was to be arrested and there's a mugshot, like it would be associated with something with brunch. And so it probably would be
turned up real hard for brunch.
Yeah. So it probably would be that. or like a fight at brunch or something. Because you know, like the memes that are like, oh, when your friend says, "Excuse me," or who is she talking to?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's time to go.
yeah,
Two margaritas.
exactly.
Yeah. Aaron, what about you? Why
um,
would you be in jail?
if I was to be in jail, it would probably be for something like stealing a whole bunch of money and giving it back. I'm a philanthropist. What can I say? Like,
What?
it's so many people out here that's living these rich lives, and it's people poor as hell around. Like, you go to New York City, you see people begging for money, and it's
Yeah.
billionaires. Like,
Mhm.
so I'm robbing everybody, and I don't care. I'm taking
So
revenge.
you would give it back to the less fortunate and the homeless.
Absolutely, not just the homeless or the less fortunate, but the middle class, because shit, we just as less fortunate as the rest of them.
Don't think it's ghetto.
So for me to answer the question, so a lot of people don't notice, but I have a little bit of road rage. Okay. So yeah, just a little bit. But like I'm one of those people where I'm having a concert in my car and then someone cuts me off or does something dumb. I'm like I kind of curse them out in my car. But I would say I would probably like aggressively follow them and do something crazy to the point where the cops or the state troopers see me and they pull me over. And they're like, yeah, you was doing the most. You got to go to jail. So,
I've always said I wish that our cars could have speakers to like yell at people in these types of things because people be in the way. They just
I
be
don't
doing dumb
know.
stuff.
'Cause people are dangerous. So I feel like you would catch some crazy people that would take that literal and try to follow you home or like do something crazy.
Oh, bitch, get out the way.
But then what if they're old? You
Oh,
know?
bitch, like you get to turn the fire.
Yeah. That could end really bad if we did have speakers on the car. But sometimes
Yeah.
you feel like you wish that you could curse the person out or they could hear you because some people
Mm-hmm.
drive crazy.
Listen.
Or I'm a big horn blower. I will blow the shit up, and I'm petty. So
I blew my horn. I just blew my horn before we started this not too long ago, driving home.
you do some bullshit while we driving. Now I'm gonna drive slow in front of you. I'm gonna tell you the whole fucking mile down the highway. I'm flashing my lights at you. Don't fuck with
Yeah,
me.
I'm petty driving, but not that petty. Like it's slight petty. All right, well, we're gonna get started with getting to know Amber. What is adulting and what does that mean to you? So we'll start there.
So one, adulting is ghetto. But when I say that, it's for that reason of that chuckle that comes after it, the like head side, like your head nodding, your deep sigh, whatever reaction it is. That's why I always say that first. But really, I feel like adulting is all the things like we have to do to actually like just survive and make it in this world. Because when you're thinking as like you're a kid, you didn't really have to like do too many of these things
You don't have to worry about none of this
because
shit.
you have people doing it for you or helping you. So like I think that is the overall definition in my opinion, but I also feel like just based on what my business is of helping people navigate adulting and have conversations around it, that each individual gets to define adulting for themselves, and when we're able to do that, it helps it become an easier process because you're not comparing yourself to others. You're not thinking like all adults should be doing X, all adults should be doing Y. Like, yeah, there's certain things like you should pay your bills. Like you should have a job of some sort making income. Like you should be going grocery shopping. Like you should be going to the doctors. But there's other things that can kind of be like up for debate of how you do them. They don't have to all be done the same way at all.
Now, you mentioned that you do have a business and you do help people navigate adulting on a day to day. So, are you more of a life coach or
Yeah.
just someone there to talk to? Like, how would you describe
Yeah, no,
yourself?
that's a great question. I always introduce myself saying that like I'm a educator and the creator of the Adulting Queen because my career started in higher education, working with students in college, and that's how I started my business because my students would always come to me asking such random questions. Like one time, somebody called me because they got a flat tire, and they're like, "What do I do?" And I was like, "Well, first you should have called your parents, but like I can help
Hey,
you," and that's what like made me realize that like I know things. How did I learn all these things? I don't know sometimes, but I learned from that with all my students coming to me that like I know those things and I can help people do that. And if I don't know, I'm resourceful to figure it out. And on the other side, like my friends and family would always be asking me about like brunch places to go or travel tips or like I'm going here, like where do you recommend? And again, like I just always had places. And now I'm like, okay, it's because I do these things in my own life. So I wouldn't say I'm a life coach per se, because my full-time job, I do meet with students one-on-one all the time, helping them with things, but like it's my job. I wouldn't at this point take on like adults like 25 and up doing like life coaching, because one, I'm only one person right now with my business. So I just say I'm an educator and creator of the Adults and Queen, helping people be motivated to navigate adulting and figure out what it is that they want to do. And I do that through my podcast, my merchandise, just social media, posting stuff, collaborating with people like you all to be able to talk about it and just put it out there. Adulting is actually one big inconvenience, because even like last week, I got locked out of my house, and I'm like, what the heck? Like,
Story, yeah.
I was mad, and then my food fell on the floor. Yes. So that's what I think is the like ghetto part about adulting, is that things are just inconvenient that happen that are out of your control, and it's how you respond to it or how do you learn to manage it is the main thing. I feel like adulting, the biggest skill, which I like jotted down this note for another question that you all sent me, was that I think that people need to know themselves and how they handle things and how they respond to things. And that makes like everything else in your life easier when you know yourself, how you respond, how you can try to plan ahead, like set routines, such small things that are actually really hard to do, for sure.
Yeah. And one of the takeaways you said that I connected with was just having to figure it out, right? Like that's one of the main things I feel like I do with adulting. I would say out of most of my family members that are around my age, I do adulting the best.
Yeah. And
That's just based off like me seeing my situation and theirs, not just based off like what I have, but it's more so like you said with situations, like how do you handle situations? And for different family members, it always comes down to relationships, because I do feel like the person that you choose, like your partner, does play a major part of how the rest of your life is going to go,
sure.
as far as children, building some type of household and what that looks like. So those are other decisions that you do have to be aware of, because that does change the trajectory of your future. So I do feel like with adulting, it does, it's very like cognitive of your decision making too.
Yeah, exactly. Now that's really what it is. And if you don't know how to do that, or you weren't like taught, or you saw like negative decisions adults made, and in the moment you might not have realized it, but then like you become an adult and you're like, wait, like my mom did this, my dad did this, my uncle did this.
But is it the right way? Like, does it make sense
Exactly.
for you?
But I feel like a lot of what we're talking about is layered under convenience, right? Like obviously if you pick a good partner in a relationship, that's a convenience, right? If you go to a great school, that's a convenience. Like it's little things that help you in this adulting world. But what about the people that necessarily don't get that help? Aside from obviously Amber doing great work, where do you find that on a consistent basis? Is it your parents? And what if your parents suck at being adults, right? Like where do we get that from?
I think it's experience, right? Like it's experience trying things that, okay, this didn't work, so let me try something else. But it's also realizing, how long am I going to keep going down this path that's not working, right? Like how long am I going to be inconvenienced or upset and stressed out at a job that I hate just because I'm getting so much money? Let me get something, maybe I can get a downgrade in pay, but I'm way happier. I recently came across a video
with your 6 figures hoodie on. You're like, no, absolutely not.
6 figures ain't enough. Shout out to Jazz. But I recently came across this video of this woman who was an attorney, And she made a reel basically saying how now she works at a gym at a Planet Fitness just for her mental health. Like it wasn't just like, oh, I'm focused on like making all this money. But as we know, or if you don't know, most lawyers and attorneys, they're hella stressed out. They're working long hours. They barely have time to spend with their family. So it's like, is it really worth it?
I think if we were doing adulting the old fashioned way, where our parents and our grandparents were doing it in a different sort of society where it was a more structured family unit, I don't think the stress level would be as high. But I do believe because the dad is out working 70 hours and the mom is out
It
working,
has to be stressed.
Yeah.
right? So now neither one of us are home. We got these badass kids. The teachers are stressed because more of an emphasis is put on them. So everything is stressed because we are expanding this the gross domestic product, trying to make as much money as we can instead of trying to focus on building families and building positive societies.
Yeah, and yeah, that I love that, and this is why I also really love when I talk to people about adulting because everybody has a different perspective on it, which is completely fine and okay. And my biggest thing is making awareness and space for people to have these conversations, even with different opinions. Because what you said to me is completely correct, but some people might not want to hear that or know because they're like, "Well, yes, society was different, but like we made it work, so why can't you?" We are in a different society. Like there are
Let's
different
talk about that.
priorities.
Yeah, can we talk about that real quick? Where like I feel like the older generations, they do sometimes think that we're complainers. We want things done easy, like we want convenience. But I think that was just how we grew up, especially in the internet age, where like we grew up in a point in time where now we have computers literally at our fingertips and we have chat gpt. Like we grew up where like things were easier
Yeah.
to use to make things like more convenient for us, and they didn't have that opportunity. So I think now just the older generations are like parents saying like, oh, you got it so easy. Back in my day I had to do this, walk 100 miles to school, you know, like those kind of conversations. But I feel like this is our generation and what we experience, and it's just a different time.
I agree. I think if I don't have kids now, but if I was to have kids, I wouldn't want them to go through the same struggles that I've gone through. I'd want to help them to make it easier. Like I think that should be the goal. But what I realize as again I continuously am having conversations and especially with my parents, I think it's like they did what they could with what they had at that time. But for
Right.
Black people specifically, it's so rooted in trauma still that it's like they're like, well, I had to suffer and fight, so like you should have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But on our side, like, so what you're saying is like, we want convenience, like something as simple as doing grocery pickup. I talked to my dad about that. He's like, oh my God, like you kids can't even go into the store anymore. I'm like,
Yeah,
no, sir, I
right.
got an hour and a half to be roaming around here. Like I can just click
Yeah,
what I need.
has so much anxiety just going into the grocery store that she has to talk herself up. But that probably comes from like other places of
Yeah.
trauma. But we do have the Instacarts. We do have DoorDash. I was sick for like a week. I used DoorDash and Instacart so much. I was like, oh, I'm glad I don't got to go out
Yeah.
when I'm super sick because it's just me. Who else is going to bring me
Yeah.
stuff?
Could have called me. I could have.
And you know, that's what I was gonna say too. That I think that our parents and grandparents also were not that we're not community focused. Their communities were different, kind of to like what Aaron was saying of like how they were building a family and building a network. Like I feel like as I was growing up, it was always my aunts, uncles around, my grandma, my cousins. And then now it's like, I mean, for myself, I moved to Baltimore and I don't have any family here really, but I mean, I've built friends and stuff, which is not the same versus like if I lived at home, like my mom is there, like I have my
Yeah.
aunts, like cousins, stuff like that. So I think for our generation of like, we want to like move, we want to explore, we want to do things. That is also what's kind of disrupted the I don't want to say tradition, the old days of how things happen because they didn't have Instacart, they didn't have whatever on the internet, so you did have to call somebody to go do something for you and help you.
And I
And
think.
for the most part,
Go ahead.
oh, I'm just gonna say for the most part, because most families back in the day, like you said, were so close knit that they didn't really find the need to really move that far away. unless it was for a job.
Mhm.
Like if it wasn't for a job, there was no really like, oh, I want to go over here to just see how it is living in this state rather than my hometown.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think now it's just different, and we have access to so much, and we can see like so much more things and like connect with different kind of people so easily. So I think that also plays a part.
Yeah.
But I gotta tie this all back into convenience, and I'm gonna focus on this because everything that I'm hearing is it's just easier. It's just easier, but life is not easier.
No,
Like
it's not.
every time we're making things easier for us, we're making it difficult because we're not actively trying to solve a problem. What we're trying to do is we're just trying to make things easy for us. It's
But
like
life is a struggle though, right? Like
it's not a struggle. Like it's people that live in the woods in New Zealand and they recognize that I sleep, I hunt, I eat, I sleep, I hunt, I eat. Right?
but
It's
where did that come from? That had to start somewhere. It wasn't just one
not
day. Go ahead. What'd you say?
that's basic instincts. But what we try to do is we try to overcomplicate the life that we're living to the point where, and I'm sorry, I don't want to make it about you, Dana, but I'm gonna make it about you. You were sick, right? And instead of having prepared, and just in case I ever get sick, I got a vitamin C, I got soups in display, I got everything I need just in case I get sick. It's like, oh damn, I'm sick today. Who's gonna help me? Where's
Hold
my
on. Hold
card?
on.
I'm just
Because
saying, too,
if
but
you've ever been in my apartment, I have bottles and shelves
I'm
of
just
vitamins and supplements. No, I'm just saying like I am prepared, but as far as like the gross, like I don't eat soups like on a day to day. I truly don't eat soups. So the fact that I had to eat soup for the whole like week and a half, I had to go order that. And I could have like asked a friend or whatever, but I think for me it does stem from just the independence of living on my own with the adulting, because I think adulting too, especially when you're doing it on your own as a woman, like it does build that I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to do it myself just because I want to prove to myself I can. um
you
that's
know
just been how I've been living for so long. So it's like I'm not going to text someone like, hey, could you order me soup, even though I had someone who did. That's a whole nother story. But for the most part, like I want to get it on my own.
I do want to preface this by saying the why was also important, right? Like you're not reaching out to somebody to order you something. So it's not like you're in need. It's not like you're begging. So I don't want it to sound like that because that sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, it didn't sound like that.
No, no.
But at the same time, we're a community. Like if Amber needs something, she should be able to reach out to somebody versus struggle,
Yes. I
right?
want to
Versus
support that.
struggle. But I
Yeah.
have a question for Amber.
Okay.
And for Dana, because Dana says she's really good at adulting. I want to know, when did you find out that you were an adult? Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Where it's just like I'm a grown up.
Yeah, I think a little bit of going to grad school, because I am a traditional student. Like I went straight from high school to college, 4 years, graduated, went straight to grad school, 2 years, and then I moved to Miami. So I think that like in grad school a little bit, because I was on the college campus still, but I was in grad school, which is different than like your undergrad. The benefit for me was I was still close to my undergrad. I went to SUNY Westbury for undergrad and then Hofstra for my master's degree. So I was still in the same area. So people that were in my community were there. So it didn't feel as like new of an experience. I still have people like that helped a lot. But once I moved from grad school to Miami, that's when I think I really was like, okay, like life is pretty real now, because I had never been to Miami before I moved there. I just like up and moved because I got a job, like you said.
I'm gonna ask what made you move to Miami?
Yeah, because I got a job, and that was not in the plans at all, because I was like, oh, I'll stay between New York and Virginia. That's where my family is, because convenience, being close to people. But I got an opportunity to go to Miami, and I was like, I liked the interview. The people seemed cool. I did get to visit before I moved there. So I was like, okay, let's go. And I think that what really solidified I'm an adult is just paying for everything myself. Like that's when I started paying for my own car insurance, like health insurance, getting my own health insurance. I was like, Mom, Dad, what the heck am I supposed to be putting on these forms, filling out my own tax papers for like real salaried money? I was like, I don't know what's happening here, retirement accounts. And I was only 23 then. So I was like, what's going on here? And I think that is what solidified it. But honestly, in the moment, I didn't think about this stuff too much. It was more so starting my business, which is what made me think about it and reflect on my own, because even though I'd never been to Miami, had no idea what awaited me, like I was not nervous about moving there. Like I do not remember ever being like scared about going down there, which I am shocked myself that I wasn't scared, like looking back. But
Opalaka is scary.
well, yes, but see, I was in like a little South Miami, like 30 minutes from South Beach. But yeah, some parts of Miami and Florida, interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, for me to answer the question, I would say similar sentiments. When I was 23, I did get like my first full-time salary job, and having a 401k and having to decide which kind of benefits that I want when it came to dental and medical, and talking about deductibles. I'm like, I'm still a little confused about deductibles now, but like
That's a whole nother topic we could go down to breaking
class
down
on deductibles, okay? But I would say for me, that was the point where I'm like, oh shit, like I'm the adult now. So not only that, when I first graduated college, it was like a year before, one of my friends gifted me a puppy as a birthday gift. And I was still,
unless you like have talked this through before.
yeah, so my last dog recently passed away, and she was like, "Oh, I know you're good with this type of dog, so would you want this as a gift for your birthday?" So I'm like, "Okay, yeah, great." Mind you, I'm still living on campus, and I couldn't bring it to my parents' house because my mom had like a fighting dog, a pit bull, and like he just didn't do well with other dogs. So a year fast forwarded after I graduated, I got my own place, and now I have a puppy to raise. So I have something to take care of and feed and take to the vet. And I felt like a dog mom, a parent. So I'm like, all right, I need to, figure it out and make sure that I have a stable income and take care of this pet. So that's what I did. And I feel like that was the moment where I felt like, okay, I'm the adult and I need to like make sure that I'm responsible. I'm making vet appointments, doctor's appointments for myself. And that was like the start for me.
Yeah.
It sounds wonderfully privileged for the both of you.
No, it is. I recognize that I have lived a privileged life, and I do make sure I let people know that too, because
I don't want to call it privilege though. Like I truly don't want to call it privilege.
Why? And then, sorry, Erin, the one thought I was going to say of why for me, I do believe my experience is privilege is because once I started talking to other people, and even just my students, like especially here in Baltimore, like our stories, Dana, are pretty similar. Like when we thought we became an adult, why, what our reasons were. In Baltimore, some of my students are like 15, 16, and they're like, yeah, I feel like I'm an adult. And I'm like, why do you feel that way? And it's because they have to do these types of things for their
I mean,
stuff like that.
If we're taking it back to when we were like in high school and like that age, yes, there were moments where I felt like an adult in my childhood as far as like the emotional stability. Like I was the parent in that sense, because there's been plenty episodes where I talked about my relationship with my mom and how she dealt with like her childhood trauma as she was raising me and my brother. So I was more of like the person consoling her and just being there for her emotionally when I was like, that probably started when I was in like middle school.
Yeah.
Younger. So in that sense, yes. But financially, when I felt like I was an adult was definitely when I first graduated college.
I only say that because in a broader scope, we do have a lot of people who approach adulthood differently, right? It's levels to adulthood. It's not just I'm gonna be an adult today, right? Because I want to be an adult. Like that's how a lot of kids think adulting comes,
Yeah.
right? But some people literally like from 14, I gotta raise my brother and sister. I gotta get a job. Hiring 16-year-olds and understanding their stories, it's like, damn, I feel so bad that this kid literally has to live an adult life.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Whether it's trauma, whether it's experiences that they deal with, whether it's men that come into these young girls' lives who sell them a bill of goods, and now they're over here living a 16-year-old life or a 30-year-old life as a 16-year-old. It's unfortunate. Like for me, I still feel like I'm not really an adult sometimes. I'll be having my moments where it's like, man, I'm chill. Everything's going to be
too. Yeah.
Babe, I be calling my parents like, what's going on? What happened?
my grandma and my aunt because they're older. Sometimes you look for the older adults. Like, you've been through this. You bought a house. What's that like?
So it's like that's the sense of community, right? We lean on that. Where it's like, I don't have to do this adult shit by myself. But
Yeah.
it's so many people where that's when I realize like I'm an adult. When it's like it's just me against the wall, basic survival. My instincts gotta kick in. Like I need a job, I need food, I need shelter. Like these are things that are important to me to live, not just to get to tomorrow. So
Yeah, and I think when you're taking care of, you have the responsibility of other people, like
Yeah.
you said, Aaron. Like if you are taking care of younger siblings, you have a child young, you have different family members you're now responsible for. That puts it, like, changes the dynamic of where you stand in the family.
Mhm.
So it's just different versions of what adulting looks like and what that looks like for your situation. But I would say for me, like, it does come down to, as you get older too, like, you do start to be more aware of like your decision making and doing what's best for not only you, but like for your future. Because
Yeah.
like Amber said, like, you do have to start planning, not like I'm doing this every single day, but just having lists and like checking off goals and things that you want to complete, like paying off your credit card debt. For me right now, that's like one of my main responsibilities, is just making sure that I'm paying all of this off so that in about 2 years, I'm in a better position to buy property. Because now, like, I raised my credit score, I have more money saved in the bank. So these are things that I'm currently thinking about for
Yeah.
future plans.
Yeah.
now challenge y'all and say, is that actually adulting? Right? Because if I'm a spoiled brat who lives with my rich parents with credit cards, yeah, I can have goals and aspirations, but I don't have the pressure to say I need to get this done. I can't move to the next level of life without accomplishing my credit. Whereas some people are like, yeah, I got it. My mom will take care of me if worse comes to worse.
Immediately a student pops into my head that they're white, but they will be saying like, "Oh, I need to get this, but I'll just use my parents' credit card," and like I'm not going to tell them. I
That-
would be dead. Like, exactly. I'm like, I could not even fathom doing that. To like the examples of what you're saying of like your parents taking care of you, your parents got it, like, you don't have to worry about anything. And my parents did not just give me everything. They gave me the basics of what we need: a house, food, like clothing, stuff like that. And so I didn't feel spoiled, but like when people have that mentality, I think it's interesting. But another part of that, if you have people and adults that are helping you and you're like a teen or child, I think what gets you to wanting to do something for yourself is either seeing your friends going through their own emotions and moving on or whatever they're going through, or your parents or whoever it is like cut you off, or you get into a bad situation with them and then you're like, okay, I'm on my own. I have to figure something out because they've given me like a deadline or whatever that conversation looks like. And I think a little bit of high school can help you not necessarily set your goals because the education system interesting, but again, like when you're graduating high school, it's kind of like the what's next. And it's like if you don't take control or think about like what is next, then like nothing happens because you have to do something for yourself or not. And if you don't, it's just your journey is a little prolonged.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with someone this morning, and we just talked about specifically the Black community and how most people, when they get around either the college age or like 25, your parents, not all parents, but there are a lot of parents who they're like, all right, you're 25. Like, are you saving up to move out? Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't want to take care of you for the rest of your life. And then there are other cultures where they're not necessarily in a rush to kick their children out. It's like, stay as long as you need. If you need to save up to buy a house, like, I'm like, the parents are more focused on like, you need to buy property, have ownership, however long that looks for you to save up, rather than I'm going to just kick you out because you're at an age, you're of age where I was at this age and I was doing so much more. I had like 3 kids. So I'm expecting that of you too. So from a cultural point of view, how do y'all feel about like, just not parents not really preparing their children for next steps as far as financial, as far as like giving them a cushion in order to make that transition easier for them to do adulting better?
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on that?
For me, where I learned about money was my dad and my mom. My dad, I would say, for better reasons, on the more positive side of like, he would always stress like, you need to save, like you should get a job. So my first job was at like 14 or 15, and I was making my own money like for going to the mall, movies, all that kind of stuff. So I started working really young on my own. And then like a huge accomplishment for myself was I paid for my whole prom myself, which now looking back, that probably was so cheap compared to whatever these kids are doing now. But that was an accomplishment for me, that I paid for my whole prom myself. My dress, hair, nails, whatever, because I wanted to prove that like what they were telling me, like I was listening, like this is a huge thing. I don't want to have to ask you for anything. And on the other side, like my mom, like she wasn't always the best. And I feel like a lot of fights with my parents was about money. So I just was like, I don't necessarily know the ins and outs numbers, but like I don't want that to be my situation. So I would always be conscious of that. I would save. And my dad, he never said like you're gonna get cut off or anything like that, but he would say like 18, you're an adult. And I can tell you at 18, I didn't feel like I was an adult. Like whether I went to college straight away or not, like I just don't feel like at 18 and that age I felt like an adult.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah.
But it again comes from like his just experience in his life. He didn't graduate high school. He stopped going to school at like 10th grade, I think. He grew up in Virginia. It was segregated until he was in 8th grade. So like it was just different, like what they had to go through and experience, and how he was like teaching things to me, and like why he thought that like that was an adult age. Because again, at like 16, he's working, he's doing things to set up for his own future and stuff. So I think that for me, that showing him there's a different way and a different method to still reach that success that he pictured in his eyes of like a retirement, because thank the Lord, he's been retired now for like 12 years. So that's great. But I think that seeing myself and my sister accomplish what we have in a different way, based off of him helping us and like telling us certain things, it sometimes it's still a struggle because he still doesn't get it, but I think it helped. And I'm thankful that like what we're talking about of how sometimes the Black community shows up was a little bit there, but I don't think my dad and my family lost like hope that they trusted, like I knew what I was doing or my sister knew what she was doing.
Yep.
So
you're judging.
Yeah, it kind of was like a push back and forth for sure. Like it wasn't always easy trying to explain.
But they were there for you. Like they taught you in different ways rather than financially. But it also wasn't like, all right, I'm just leaving you to the wolves and figure it out. And like you gotta move out.
Yeah, no, thankfully. But I think again, because my path was so traditional of going straight to college, that I had a plan graduating high school so that it didn't even come to like, you can't live here or whatever the situation would be. So,
okay.
I do think it's also a lot of societal pressures that are in play. So like me being a young Black man, if I'm trying to date a young Black girl, the last thing she want to do is go to your mom's crib, right? So it's like little things like that. Mentally, it's like I got to get my own so I can just enjoy having a relationship. But I always reference my coach when I was in college. Young white guy, 25 years old, graduated from like Lock Haven University, did grad school. He's living a chill life. And he would bring us to his house for like dinners as a team. It was just team bonding stuff. And he had this big old house at his mom and dad's house. My coach lived at that house till he was about 30 to 35 years old. I don't know the exact age. Got married, had children, didn't leave out of that house until he was well established for not only himself, but his family. If that was me, I wouldn't have had no woman. I wouldn't have had no child, because the way that we grow up, it's always, as an adult, you're supposed to have your own. You're supposed to figure it out. You're not about to be going to your mom's house. Buy a hotel room, right, if you want to chill.
So you think for you, it was more of like society and what visually it looked like with you still staying at your parents' house at a certain age?
It's peer pressure.
Yeah.
I go on Instagram. I do like this or that sometimes. Sometimes it'll be a little spicy.
I hate your this or that.
Sometimes it's a little spicy. And one of the this or that's was pertaining to like a guy with a Jordan collection but no car, right? Or a guy who always puts you on Airbnb but don't want to bring you to his house because that's where his wife lives. And like these people would rather go to the Airbnb and the guy who won't bring you around his wife than to be around a guy with the Jordan collection. They're like, oh, he's not saving for a car. He don't have his priorities. But the whole of this exercise is you are generalizing. you're assuming that this guy don't have his life together because that's the way you see somebody with a Jordan collection. You just think that this dude ain't got it together because he needs to prioritize being an adult, having his shit together. I don't want to walk somewhere or get on a bus with you.
I just think having your shit together, it does look different for everybody, but with society, with, social media, it looks different now, right? Because
Yeah.
everyone wants to show that they're living a lavish lifestyle. Even with like the influencers, when they're doing the get ready with me's, they all live in like these dope ass houses. Everything is like designed the T, decor on 1,000. And I'm like, this isn't what, like, these aren't the places that growing up I saw.
Exactly.
Now that I'm seeing this on social media, it's you're low key comparing. It's like, well, I don't have a really nice view of the city, a condo, like the rest of these influencers. I'm not saying that's how I think, but just younger people who are easily influenced, hold on, that's what they feel like, right?
Yeah.
Where like they're scrolling on the Instagrams, the TikToks, the whatever, and they're seeing their favorite content creators. They're living these lavish lifestyles. So they're like, I want to be a content creator. My place can look like this
Yeah.
if I'm able to make that much money. But in reality, like once you put down your phone, what does the path look like for you to get there? Not everyone has that either self-confidence, they have the time to be posting like that, to make this a full-time job or whatever. So there's just different things that I feel like people don't really think about in the grand scheme of things before they start comparing themselves to people online.
Yeah, for sure.
But Amber talked about when she was working for her own prom. Around that time, we were all around the same age.
Mhm.
I'm assuming my super sweet 16, or she's seen cribs and all these things, right? Society continues to put this into our heads. We don't necessarily seek adulthood, right? We don't seek life.
Absolutely not.
I think it happens though. It happens to us.
It's planned. It's structural, right? Like they want us to be able to provide all this expenditure instead of for us to just save our money and be communal. This is what it's all about. Adulthood is about communal and convenience, right? We put those two things together, and Black community will live a lot better lifestyle. I promise you. But
Speaking of, yeah, not to cut your wisdom, but I feel like when you talk about communal too, is there an age limit where you feel like you shouldn't have roommates? Because that's another thing too. I would say for me, there isn't, right?
Yeah. No.
But for me, like, I've been living on my own ever since I graduated college. And now it's a preference because I'm able to do that. And I guess from a privileged point of view, I do make enough money to live on my own, especially with like, a lot of jobs are cutting positions and stuff like that. Rent is going up, but thank God, like I'm able to afford this lifestyle. But I do feel like having someone who does have roommates, like they shouldn't be looked down upon just because of that, that living situation. At the end of the day, they're able to save more money because they're not spending 19 or $2,000 on rent. Like they're only paying maybe like $500 to $600, and they're living with like two of their good friends. But I do feel like too, when it comes to like living with friends, you have to find people who are responsible
Yeah.
enough to pay rent, people that you trust. And from my point of view, like I have friends that I trust, but never to the point where I felt comfortable living with them.
Yes.
So, go ahead, Amber.
No, I would say yes to that part. But also to Aaron's point, I think that as a generation, we're not saying this because like I am a millennial and I work with students that are Gen Z because that's age like 11 to 26. But I do think as a generation, we are moving away from community. However, we keep saying we want community and oh my God, I miss people and this and that. But like we actually don't, because to Aaron's point, and like I have seen this just in my own family as well, it's like, and you said it, Dana, too, like people didn't move away, like everybody still stayed in the community, like your grandma and your uncle live together, or like your cousins live with your aunts and uncles, whatever it is, and they continue their lives like that. And even for my mom, like she lived with my grandma until she moved in with my dad, and I don't think anything is wrong with that, like having roommates, people living together with their families, whatever their situation is. But if you're dating, like Erin said, or you're trying to meet people, or you're just meeting new friends and you say like, oh, I live at home, sometimes people do judge you on that. And I don't think that somebody should be judged on it. I think that you just have to have a bigger plan for whatever you want in your life. And that doesn't have to be that you eventually want to move out or you want a house or whatever. You just need like some type of bigger vision for what you want adulthood to look like for you, that doesn't have to include these traditional things of buying a house, buying a car, buying whatever. So I think that community and communal living is fine, but we as a generation are definitely moving away from community without saying it. Because if you say that to somebody, they're like, no, look, I love being around people. I love this. I love that. But you're like, okay, so have your mom move in with you. Oh no, like absolutely not. Or like go live with your sister or whatever it is. It would be like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, but it does depend though on the relationships too.
Yeah, and I mean more so for anybody. It doesn't have to be like the family.
Because it
I agree
depends
with
on
you.
the level of trauma with these relationships and mending them, and if you want to mend them, and like what that looks like, which is another conversation, because now you have to get down to like, well, what caused all of this, and like, can we move forward? And some people can be more grudge holding than others, so that's like another thing that comes along with it. But yeah, for me, like, I'm not opposed to having roommates if I was secure enough to know that these people, they wanted more from themselves as far as like the ultimate goal, and they were responsible enough, or like, I've known these people for so long where like, all right, I feel comfortable with us paying bills together and figure out like who's gonna clean, because cleaning is always a big thing too when you're living with people. So what?
I said, you got it.
Yeah, so just for me, it's just a lot of little things that I'm not a, like, I don't think I'm a neat freak,
No,
but
I'm with you, Dana, on your side with this because I live by myself too, have lived by myself, and I'm very grateful that I'm able to do it. But I do often think about like if somebody needs to live with me or if my mom moved down here or whatever the situation is, and it makes me be like, all the things you're saying. I'm like, really like, okay, how would this work when for so long you live by yourself and you just don't know all these things about this person?
yeah, and I've come from living with an ex. Like, we lived together for a year during 2020. COVID happened, and this was like the first time since being in college that I lived with somebody. So it was a struggle for me where like it wasn't about like responsibility of paying bills. He was clean, like he was learning as we were going, but ultimately like I was not comfortable. Like, it just didn't feel right. So I'm like, all right, well, I need to move back home, move back to Jersey, not to my parents' house, but just move back to a place where I felt comfortable and close to my family and friends, but also be in my own space. So
But I want to change gears a little bit, just a tad, because clearly we are very passionate, all three of us.
we get real sentimental.
But like, that still has to do with adulting. It really all goes back to that.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to ask you, particularly Amber, like why adulting? Why is this so passionate? Why build a brand around adulting?
Yeah. I think like I started it, like I said, because of my students and my family and friends. But the way it's grown, and it's almost 5 years in January, the way that, thank you. The way that it's grown, I think what this brand and business is more about is exactly what we're doing, having conversations. And that nobody's right or wrong at all because, like, Erin's life is Erin's life, Dana's life is Dana's life, Amber's life is Amber's life, and you can have different opinions, but like what you want to do for yourself is completely fine with what you want to do. And with all the comparison and social media and you seeing things, I think that people think these things are attainable, which is great because you have more access to seeing better, even if you live somewhere that that's not what you see. But it's kind of creating a false perception, like we all were saying, of like, how do you get there? Like, what's the in between?
They don't do that. They never show that. It's just like products.
Yeah. So I like talking about adulting and having my business and brand to start these conversations and to continue these conversations, but more so having them in a non-judgmental way. Like that is part of the biggest feedback that I always get when I do my workshops or when I talk to my students. And I've just now noticed with for almost 10 years professionally working and then having my business and seeing how people react and how they talk to me, that I'm not judgmental, even with my own experiences. Like, I own that I had a privileged background growing up. That does not mean I did not have struggles in some regards, but I was privileged growing up. I had a traditional experience of college, like all those things. There's certain things that I haven't had the experience that others have, but everybody has their own traumas. Everybody has their own negative things that impact their mental health. Everybody has their own self-doubt. So it's just talking about how do we try to make adulting better for individual people to somehow come together to have a better experience of adulting. And I think the biggest thing is knowing yourself and then allowing others to speak their stories and say how they feel and what they're going through without the judgment. Because the minute you judge somebody or say like, oh, like you still live at home, oh, you don't have any money saved, oh, you're not going to college, oh, like this, that, they shut down. And I saw a student do this last week. I was like, oh, like you're graduating, like did you get any college acceptances back? And she just like dropped her head. And I was like, oh, are you not going to college? And she was like, no, I don't think I want to go. And I was like, no, that's fine. Like, I was like, don't let your peers make you feel bad about it.
The pressures of going to college, because when you're in high school, I have a little cousin, she just turned 18 and she's doing the college route. She's filling out applications, she's sending me messages about like different things to look for when it comes to like picking a school. But if you are a child who doesn't want to go down that route and you're in just an environment where like people are getting their acceptance letters, you're feeling that pressure of like, excuse me, am I making the right decision? Because
Yeah.
all of my peers, they're going away to college, like they're moving on their own, but I want to stay home with my parent and help them work a store, run a business. So yeah, that does, I feel like, create a level of insecurity.
Yeah. And I think that what I've also realized and learned, like when you're saying like if somebody wants to stay home and help their family business, we need people to do these different things like that because everybody can't go to college. Everybody can't do like a 9 to 5. Everybody can't do a desk job. Like we still need the maintenance people. We need small business owners. We need.
And that goes to community too, because if your family has a business that they've been running for a long period of time and like you're interested and you like helping out, don't feel pressure to be like, oh, I have to go to school now, even if you don't want to because your peers are going to school.
Yeah.
Like, what if you enjoy working at the local store, at the restaurant, and you want to eventually take over that with your parents? You know, like don't feel like, oh, I'm not doing what everyone else is doing, so I'm different. And like now my self-esteem is going down.
Yeah.
So I think that's okay.
And that's why it's really important that we share these conversations. On last week's episode, Dana and I had a very, very intense conversation about internalizing the things that people talk to each other about where we don't cast judgment. So if you do want to be that social worker or that store worker or you want to be a doctor, whatever you want to be, some people don't feel comfortable talking to people because the first thing that they're going to do is judge. As we transition into adulthood, we got to teach these kids not to judge people for their decisions. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. If we would go back to being 18, whether it's a yes or a no, it doesn't require judgment. Well, you can judge yourself. You can make whatever assertions you want for yourself. But at the end of the day, nobody else should be able to help dictate that decision for you without actually listening to you, without actually internalizing how you feel, so we can have quality feedback for it. Because a lot of times, yeah, I didn't want to go to college out of high school. Instead of people actually listening to me, understanding me, it was like, no, you need to go take SATs. And I love my grandmother to death. She in the room next to me. She said, either work or go to school. So it's
That's
like,
all they say to do.
yeah, instead you could have sat me down. You can internalize, like, hey, I know you said this is what you want to do. What's your plan? Dana talked about what is your plan. And sometimes when our parents and our significant figures in our lives, friends, relatives, coaches, etc., they don't ask us these questions. They just kind of let us know. And we're kids.
Yeah, and that was a full circle moment that you just mentioned. So I love that.
Good podcaster.
Right.
I'm doing this for a year now.
Okay, more professional. But just from what I said in the last episode, it was just about how there's no rules to this life thing. Like, there's no like, you have to do this, this, and this. We also talked about the construct of just school in general, which, you know, most kids, they do go to school from kindergarten until college or until 12th grade. And others, like, they're homeschooled. So what would that person be if they wasn't put into, you know, our society's school system at such a young age? Like, would they be a better person, and what would that look like?
Yeah.
So I do feel like you just have to do what's in your best interest, and there's no like set route of like, you have to do this in order to feel successful.
Yeah, and I
So
agree. For my like work, because the benefit and something I'm super grateful for is that I do this work full time anyway, and that's just kind of how the business started. But as the Adulthood Queen expands, and you know, one day down the line when there's way more people, it's like I think that to successfully do this like in life, it's like it really needs to be broken down by like young kids and teens, which is like thankfully like I'm working with high school students, and then like a college age students, and then the like students that are not in college but they're still young of like 18 to 21, and then just like 25 to 30 is a whole nother thing, and then I feel like just 30 plus, because
right.
you can't attack like all this with everybody at once. It really has to be broken down into like,
Yeah, it should be like certain age groups, because I've also heard even at 50 is a very life-changing point of your life, because you are, you know, 50 years in, and maybe you're going through a lot of changes. You're going through maybe a divorce, you're doing a different life path, or maybe you've retired. And what does that look like for you? So yeah, I think there are different phases of adulting and
yeah.
adulthood that these types of conversations should definitely be just more apparent for different groups of people.
And then the last part too is that I feel like anybody that has encountered my business, no matter their age, has benefited and given feedback of like, oh my God, like I needed this when I was younger. Like, oh my God, like this is great work. Like, oh my God, like how can I continue following you, or how can I collaborate with you, and how can I help, and how can I support this, because like this is great of what it is. Because you mostly see people talking about adulting in just finances, just work, or like just motherhood or parenthood or whatever. There's none of the in between about like mental health, quitting your job, like
Your
dealing with
emotions.
grief, dealing with moving, like going to the grocery store and being mad, like that everything's expensive. Like there's just no conversations about kind of like exactly what we were saying about the social media thing. You see all the glamour. There's nothing about the in between. So this is about the in between and just having conversations we should be having, so that people don't get to 50 and feel like, dang, like I really wish at 25 I knew this already.
And so they don't feel alone. Like that
For sure.
communal aspect, I do feel like is very important and key, where we are slowly becoming so divided when ultimately we all want the same thing, which is unity. So it's like, how do we get that in 2023 going into 2024?
Yeah.
Well, the way for us to get that going into 2024 is to focus on things that make us happy. So what we do at the end of our show, Amber, is we have what's called the happy hour moment.
We love that.
Started off because you are our guests of honor, and we appreciate you so much for coming through. So let us know something either at the tail 2023 or 2024 that you're looking forward to that's going to keep you happy.
Well, that is a perfect segue to talking about the 5 years of the Adulting Queen. And I think that that is making me happy, because I really feel like I blinked and it was 5 years, and it has grown, and I've done and tried so many different things. And I think that one of the things that I am proud of myself for is, even though I like might beat myself up and be like, oh my God, I wish I should have done this, I should have done that. Like I'm trying to put this out, I'm trying to put that out, but I'm only one person. I have never stopped posting in this whole 5 years. Like, yeah, it might be like a week went by or a couple of days went by, but like I have never been inactive on my social media in these 5 years. And that is a huge accomplishment. However, I am going to be planning some breaks in 2024 for sure.
Yes.
And then to celebrate the 5 years, I am doing an in-person event in Baltimore on January 21st. Tickets are out. is 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And I'll be doing my podcast live, Sipping Sunday, for like about an hour, hour and a half with my friend hosting the show for me. And then it's just brunch vibes, photo ops, bar, food, mingling, networking, community, people getting to know each other, people putting out their own businesses, because a big thing about me is like, I want you to come and feel that you just put your stuff out there. You never know what can happen. So
Yes.
it's going to be a good kickoff for 2024 for me.
It is. Love that for you. And it does sound like you have a lot of great things. It is important though to take breaks. So that was something you said that's key. Like you're constantly working on your business and making sure you're consistent, because with social media, that's always the number one thing. We struggle with that, so we can relate.
Yep.
But yeah, congratulations to 5 years.
Thank you. I can't believe it, but that's wild.
Yeah, for me to answer the question, my happy hour moment, I would say, like, I recently just got over bronchitis. I don't know if any one of you have had it, but it is the worst thing in the freaking world. Like, I've had it for, I want to say it was about a week. So today was like the first day where I can actually eat regular food besides soup. My throat was inflamed, waking up coughing, a lot of mucus, headaches. It was a lot. Barely could breathe. So thank God I'm over that and I'm feeling way better, and I'm able to do the podcast with y'all today, because that was something that I did worry about the beginning of last week. I'm like, damn, we got to record. It's been a minute where we've been putting things off to record with Amber. So like, I need to feel better. So thank God
The
I felt great.
Came through.
Yes. So what about you, Aaron?
First and foremost, Amber, we're gonna apologize in advance because we can't make it on the 21st because we record that. But if we need to help support your endeavors, we will. I'll send some of my friends in Baltimore through.
Yes, please do.
I've been talking about this all year, and that's support, right? Support is free. Support is something that we just got to continue to be that community, right? And then entering 2024. I've been talking about it the last couple of weeks on this show, is branding, right? We are going to be doing a big initiative on not just branding ourselves, but also looking out for the brands of the individuals we connect with. So when we see adult content, we're going to look out for you, and we're going to do everything we can to help you support
your content.
Yeah, not because we're trying to get anything from you, because this is authentic. This is genuine. This is honest. I'm not wearing this hoodie for no reason. This is somebody that came onto the show, and we want to support his brand. I was just with PJ, who was also on the show a couple shows back, and I'm supporting his brand. All of our friends and family, even a guy like Rashad McKinney, who came onto our show to help us out, he's doing a new podcast. I'm going to support his brand. It's not because we want anything from you guys. It's because it's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be a family. Blood. I don't need sweat and tears to end family for you. And I know that me and excuse me, damn,
you getting choked up.
We often talk about family on this podcast, and we talk about it because we give that much of a fuck about our families. No matter what the struggles may seem like, no matter what the relationships may look like to the outside looking in, what we're building here, and we want to continue into 2024 being outside.
Yes,
this is what
we love that. So yep. And guys, if you are interested in joining the conversation, joining our show, you can email us at woawpod@gmail.com. We have been getting a couple people reaching out. So right now we're just focusing on the scheduling. We are booked for January, right?
And busy. We love that.
Yeah, we're completely booked in studio for January. Oh gosh. But we are looking for a couple people to join us before December is out. So if you feel like you'd have something great to provide to the conversation, you can reach out. But on that note, Amber, thank you again for joining us. And this was a great conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate it both.
Thank you so much. And Aaron, I don't know what's going on with your network, but I see you're back.
Yeah, my 20% just came up.
That's Lord.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, we're gonna wrap it up here. And we outside. We out.
Is that?